You're listening to Once, episode 211, The Broken Kingdom, Initial Reactions. Welcome back to another episode of Once, the unofficial podcast for ABC's TV show Once Upon a Time. I'm Daniel J. Lewis.
I'm Jeremy Laughlin.
And thank you very much for joining us. We have just watched this episode, The Broken Kingdom, so our thoughts and theories will be a bit all over the place, but that's where your feedback and our full discussion comes in later on in the week. You can find out more information about how to send us feedback and when that episode is over at oncepodcast.com. So I was wrong about Camelot being something other than a kingdom, like a bigger thing, but Camelot is literally not as it seems.
True. Or is it now?
Well, in the subtitles, and we were talking about this even during the chat, when Rumpel said fix in the subtitles, Rumpelstiltskin was putting the word fix in quotation marks. So it's kind of a fake fix, or that was my impression.
Yes. I enjoyed the episode until there was this moment when I realized this is completely arbitrary. They throw not even enough dust at something, and what? It affects a fix in the eye of the thrower?
I think it's affecting it. It is affecting the actual thing, but
so if I threw some of that dust at the show, would it write the dust out of the show? Because I don't think the show should have the dust in it.
It's kind of like a potion we once saw that would make someone think they love you, but not really love you. It's very similar to that. It's basically all a fake. So Arthur does literally sit on a throne of lies. We were right in our last episode.
Guys, I'm going to call it now. You know how this dust is made? You take some squid ink, you dry it out, you pulverize it, and you have squid ink dust. And you can do anything.
But if it, quote, fixes, unquote, broken things, it makes me think that it's really simply magic maintaining a facade. So as soon as the magic is taken away, so is the facade. But whatever thing it is that's happening is still happening in Storybrooke as well, because Guinevere still is supportive of Lancelot. No, because Guinevere is still supportive of Arthur in Storybrooke.
True. But who's to say precisely why? So I was following as far as it fixing an obviously broken sword or making it appear fixed. They were calling it the Broken Kingdom. I kind of even followed that. I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. But fixing people. Well, where's the break for the magic to latch onto? In what way were the charmings broken? It has to depend on the viewpoint of the person wielding the dust.
Yes. Okay. I get it.
So, and I mean, that's the only way it can work, because they now believe something that isn't true, which doesn't seem terribly fixed to me.
Right. So while everyone sees something and something does change, it's fixed according to the caster.
Right.
Okay. I misunderstood you the first time.
Yeah. So that has pretty far-reaching implications, but I assume it has to be somewhat weak.
Yeah.
And like you said, not permanent. Which means whatever can undo it, Camelot will disappear. Although in Arthur's mind, it already has.
Yeah, and Arthur is...
At least in present day.
Arthur is obsessed with this dagger and trying to make the sword whole again. And he seems like he wants to defeat Merlin.
Yeah, he said something about prove Merlin wrong.
Yeah.
And I didn't quite follow that, honestly, because they went from Merlin said he was going to be king to Merlin speaks in half-truths to I now need to disprove Merlin. And I'm not sure which part needed disproving, or maybe I just missed that and we'll figure that out for our full discussion.
Well, see, Merlin apparently prophesied that Arthur would be the rightful ruler with the sword. Okay, sure. The sword is broken. Well, Merlin didn't say anything about that as far as we know. And Arthur didn't need a whole sword to be the king of Camelot. He was heralded as the king when he came back with the sword. He was considered victorious.
Mm-hmm.
People were celebrating. People were following him. He could have risen the kingdom honorably with that sword, even though it was broken.
I even wondered for a moment, does being broken mean it wasn't really secured? Could anyone have pulled it from the rock? But no, because we already saw it kill somebody for trying, someone who wasn't worthy. So it still was able to make that determination. He could have even probably shown it to people and said, yeah, so it's broken, but a guy totally got vaporized trying to take it out of the stone before I did, and it let me take it.
Yeah.
Therefore, I am king. It's kind of representative of our broken kingdom, but we'll fix it all.
I liked the writing of this episode. Sure, there's the dust thing or the sand of Avalon.
The sand. So
that some people won't like, but
some people.
I think the writing was pretty good. I loved the hilariousness of watching Hook and Emma seeing Henry and Violet. And Hook is all like, great job, mate, you got a girl. And Emma's like, what? Who is this girl with my son? You got nothing?
I got nothing.
Oh, yeah, you don't take notes on Sunday nights.
It's because it's my initial reaction.
Yes. So we also saw why there's this rift between Lancelot and Arthur, and some stuff is messy. Okay, I know that. The world is messy. Guinevere was totally willing to stay with Arthur, to do the right thing, stay with her husband, and she wanted to, but he was being a drop-dead husband. A
drop-dead husband?
But he was being a deadbeat husband and obsessed with this thing that was pulling him away from his marriage. I was thinking, because I'm married, I was thinking, dude, dance with your wife. Come on. This whole story would turn out extremely differently if you would just love your wife.
Well, I laughed out loud when she said, you made it. I'm like, out the door. Yeah. I mean, like, it wouldn't have been difficult at all. Yeah, that was a little frustrating, but at least he was obsessed, but he was expressing love. He wasn't loving her in the right actions. But then when she got back is when suddenly it didn't make sense to me anymore. Suddenly he was all growly and like stealing the bag from her and where have you hidden it and blah, 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 blah. But that wasn't really how he was acting before.
Well, he was close to it. He's obsessed. And the thing is that here he discovers that she has it and she's keeping it from him, basically. But one thing that we can, let me try this differently. But speaking of keeping things from others, I want to thank some people who are not keeping their generosity from the podcast and are keeping the podcast going without the need of the sands of Avalon. Special thanks to our heroes for this episode of the podcast, David Newland, Steve Johnson, Lisa Slack, and we have a couple new heroes supporting the podcast, Megan Martin and Irvin Z. Martinez. Thank you very much for your kind contributions and support. We could not do this without you. And we're going to be able to do some really cool things as the support continues to come in. And we've got some big lofty goals of maybe someday making it to Steveston to do a podcast live from there. or some other really cool things coming in the future. But thank you for your support. It does cost money to run the podcast and to do a lot of things with the podcast. And we seriously could not do it without you, our heroes. So if you'd like to be one of our heroes, just like David, Steve, Lisa, Megan, Irvin, and our 29 backers on Patreon, then please go to oncepodcast.com/hero and be that hero. Wield the support button in your browser and pull $1 or more from the stone of your wallet. This is sounding really horrible, but basically we want you to be the hero to the podcast. And so please go to oncepodcast.com/hero and thank you for your support.
It's okay. We'll just throw some sand on that later.
If someone sends us some sand from Avalon, that would be cool. Contact information for mailing stuff, by the way, is on the website at oncepodcast.com. We got to see modern day Storybrooke very, very, very little in this, which was
true.
Nice because I know in the chat, I saw some people were getting a little bit confused with the back and forth from long time ago in Camelot to 5 years ago to present day, then 5 years ago to present day, back and forth. There was a little bit of confusion. Rewatch will help clarify that. But so it was nice that they saved yet another place, a fourth timeline for just one short scene at the end of the episode.
Yeah, I think the only reason there would be any confusion is because I did catch myself kind of in a frame of mind where, oh, so that's what's going on. Those are the motives. And then I realized 6 weeks ago, that's what was going on. And those were the motives, but we still don't know precisely what's happening in Storybrooke because we didn't get any real reveals there this week. And we don't fully know what led up to the return and the erased memories.
Right. And now I'm thinking it's not Arthur that did it. Maybe it was Merlin. Maybe it was Morgana, if she is a character that we're going to see at some point. But it is cool to see Merida back, not the way that I expected.
You mean tied to the front bumper of Emma's bug?
Or in a dungeon. Either of those were unexpected.
Yeah, I didn't expect Camelot to be where... Now, we still don't know for sure that that's where she was headed. But she got arrested somehow and put in the dungeon.
Well, maybe it was where she was headed because very little time passed between her seeking the kingdom that kidnapped her 3 little brothers.
Right.
And then her ending up here in the dungeon. So maybe she did walk right in and say, I need to punch someone in the face for stealing my little brothers, and then I'll forgive you, or vice versa. And then they throw her in the dungeon.
And they said, how about you just forgive us from our dungeon?
With Merida coming back, it does make me think that Camelot is involved in Merida's story. Why else would she be there?
That's, I think I agree with you. And then in present day, they actually use the word brave.
Yes.
So I guess I'm going to have to finally watch the movie.
Oh, yeah. Movie night. So how is Merida going to make Rumpel brave?
I predict an apple on his head and archery practice. He has to not flinch.
It might be that now that Emma has Merida's heart, Emma can control Merida. But for Merida to teach Rumpel to be brave, Merida kind of needs to be Merida.
Yeah, she kind of needs that brave heart thing. Yeah, I don't really understand how it's going to work. I think they might have to throw some sand at it.
That's the new thing that fixes all things. Quote, fixes, unquote.
It
all things.
Might be better at fixing things than Squid Ink.
I was a little disturbed about the seeming deception too. Maybe I'm remembering this incorrectly because we'll rewatch the episode and understand everything better. But Guinevere kissed Lancelot.
Yes.
But then later, Lancelot did confirm that he loves Guinevere.
Mm-hmm.
He did, after all, put on the whole birthday party for her when Arthur wasn't, which could just be seen as a friend. But I think Lancelot's leaving Camelot was an honorable thing to do. He realized, I have feelings for a married woman. This is not what a man who's supposed to be trusted should do. This is not honorable. I need to just leave and let them work their issues out. I'm going to be gone. But he still says that he loves Guinevere later on and expected her to say the same. But Guinevere kissed him. I don't know. It's just weird to me a little bit.
Yeah, and she now says for what he did.
Yeah, like
so
blaming.
Is there more, or is it just her twisted, shall we say, fixed outlook on things that makes her think that way?
Well, it's more like Arthur's fixed outlook. So Arthur
yes,
probably wants to think that Lancelot was the one who caused this. So therefore, Lancelot made the first move and Lancelot tried to steal his wife. No, Arthur, look, you were being a deadbeat husband. Dance with your wife.
If we've learned nothing else, dance with your wife. So I'm no Arthurian expert, but as I understand it, Camelot's always been almost more of a concept, or it was sort of a concept before even it was an actual kingdom in these stories. So maybe that's part of the point that we're moving toward, is that it didn't have to look, it's only as broken as they consider it to be. Once he was the rightful king, he didn't need to put on all the pretense, and he didn't need to sort of fake Camelot the way that everyone envisioned it. They were building it.
He was being impatient, though.
Right. He's spending a lot of time keeping up appearances instead of accepting what is and working with what he has.
Mm-hmm. I loved getting to see the Dark One vault, because I remember when we first saw that, I thought, wait, a vault? And it's this little thing on the ground. That's it. A vault seems like something you can go into, like Regina's vault. Mm-hmm. So why can't we see inside? And then we got to see inside of it, and that was really cool. I think that stuff that was in there, that's the darkness, which might continue to exist, and it's not necessarily, well, it was tethered to a person. So
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe like that's Rumple's darkness remaining there to guard the vault, and maybe that's simply the security system going
maybe
around in the bottom and like showing a vision of your daughter and such to try and convince you to do the right thing. But anyway, now we also know where Rumple has kept his dagger safe for all of these years when he was the Dark One, that he created this place. That's really cool.
Well, okay, so timeline wise, that was actually Rumpelstiltskin, yes?
Yes.
This was before the curse?
Right. Yes, this was 5 years ago.
So, okay. So even though we're in season 5, it's definitely not been 5 years. No, because Henry would be way too old.
Well, it's about 5 years ago. 5 years plus 6 weeks, give or take a few months, something like that. So this works out fine that, yes, this is before the curse. Everyone's still in the Enchanted Forest. Rumple's right about to cast the curse. Or Regina.
Get Regina to do it.
Yes. And speaking of that place, I loved being reminded of Mary Margaret's vision of young Emma taking Mary Margaret's heart. And we always kind of question that, huh?
Like, what was that?
Yeah. So if they put that in there, knowing that something would happen in this place that we saw, that's really cool. But we never got to see anything like that happen in that place.
Yeah. I'm not sure if they were just putting in some continuity because they wanted to reuse a set, or if there's more coming, because what actually happened didn't seem terribly, even though they just referenced that flashback or that memory, it didn't seem terribly connected.
Mhm. Oh, you know what? I just realized something.
Oh,
David and Mary Margaret in Camelot were enchanted with the sand of Avalon
true.
to, quote, fix them, unquote. They're in Storybrooke now.
Right.
So they should, since Guinevere seems to be, quote, fixed, unquote, then David and Mary Margaret should also be, quote, fixed, unquote. So we need to be watching David and Mary Margaret in the upcoming episodes in Storybrooke to see what kind of stuff are they doing. Can we really trust them and their motives? Because back in Camelot, no, we can't anymore.
That's true. Yeah, there are some questions about Guinevere and her motivations. If she's still under the effect, or if that's just how she thinks now.
Right.
We'll see more about what happened in the rest of the previous 6 weeks. We'll have a better idea.
Now, there are in the coming episodes of Once Upon a Time, there is going to be a short gap, and that will be that there will be no episode on Sunday, November 22nd, because that's when the Country Music Awards will be on ABC. So no episode on that Sunday.
That's why?
Yes.
Not Thanksgiving in the U.S.?
Well, Thanksgiving in the U.S. will be that week, which is nice for us because that makes the podcast schedule easier for us. But then Once Upon a Time will be back on November 29th after that. And there are some cool things coming, like with a 2-hour episode. So they're going to get several great things there, even though they're taking the break for the CMA. There is also an opportunity for you to win some really cool stuff for Once Upon a Time, and that is enter our costume contest. I don't have the page set up just yet for you to enter, but that will be very soon. This will be your opportunity that regardless of whether you celebrate Halloween or anything like that, if you just have a great costume, then you can go ahead and submit your photo early, but we're going to cut off the submissions about the first week of November. So go to oncepodcast.com/contest to enter your name, email address, and a photo of your costume, you in the costume, of a Once Upon a Time character. It can be any character from Once Upon a Time, not a Disney character. It needs to be a character from Once Upon a Time. And then everyone else will get to vote on the best Once Upon a Time costume. That'll be eventually at oncepodcast.com/contest. And there will be a first place, second place, and third place. And you can qualify too if you are outside of the United States. We'll work some things out for the prizes there. So if you're interested in that, go to oncepodcast.com/contest when that information will be available soon. And you can look at the rules, look at how you can submit, and then enter to win some cool stuff, including maybe season 4 or 5 Blu-rays or DVDs. Maybe it could be a soundtrack, a poster. Maybe it could be some other cool Once Upon a Time swag, a t-shirt, anything like that. Go to oncepodcast.com/contest. Go to oncepodcast.com/contest in order to get that information soon. We would love your feedback for our upcoming full discussion where we will rewatch this episode, get some sound clips, screenshots, do a lot more research, and some other really cool things. So please send us your feedback. You can call, send a voice message through the website, send an email to us, send a message through the website, all of that over on the site, oncepodcast.com. And please share this episode out with your friends and family and get other people listening to the podcast. The show notes for this episode are at oncepodcast.com/211. Please connect with us on Twitter at oncepodcast. And I'm Daniel J. Lewis on Twitter at The Ramen Noodle.
I'm Jeremy Laughlin on Twitter at Phlegon. That's PHLEGON.
And until next time, remember, the pony's smarter than the pirate. And thanks for listening. Once Podcast is a proud member of Noodle Mix Network. Find more of our award-winning and award-nominated podcasts to make you think, laugh, and succeed at noodle.mx. Big thanks to our heroes for this episode of the podcast. If you'd like to be one of them and keep the podcast going, then please go to oncepodcast.com/hero. And thank you for your support.